So as most of you know, there have been some significant changes to incendiary grenades in CS2. Along with that, on Vertigo, there have been a ton of changes to the A bomb site, so it's definitely time for me to revisit and talk to you guys about what I consider to be the most essential Molotovs to learn for this map. But before we dive straight in, I want to thank today's sponsor, SkinsMonkey. So, SkinsMonkey is an automated CS2 trading site that provides an instant way for you to get new skins. All you have to do is select your old skins that you don't want anymore and then pick out some fresh ones to trade for. It's as easy as that. And right now you could get a free $5 if you use code TACTICS on the site. And finally, you could get up to a 35% deposit bonus when using my code. So thanks again to SkinsMonkey for sponsoring this video. Links in the description. Along with those changes, the spawn timings are a bit misleading now due to the massive opening in elevator. For example, the T's can now get all the way up ramp without getting spotted by the side hall player. So here is a side-by-side comparison of best spawn versus best spawn. If you'll notice on your right here, the T, if he goes to the left side of that box, he's not spotted by the CT. In contrast, if the T goes on the close side of the box, they are spotted. So as a result of that new timing, you're probably going to want to get a molly down as quickly as possible. So as you probably saw in my video from the other day, if you get stuck into this position and do a right-click jump throw at the bottom middle of this white part on the cone, well, that's going to land right down here and completely molly off this region right here. If you pair that with an HE that you delay till about 146, that's going to do max damage to anyone trying to run through it, which is a really good set. So one very valid criticism to that Molotov is the fact that most pros in the tier 1 scene are throwing this smoke right here to where it's going to go all the way up and it's going to end up landing right on top of this position, taking away the CT's crane peak. So when it lands something like this, it provides also a very nice scale smoke for the T's to be able to push up. If it's thrown like that, I'll go ahead and rethrow it. It's not going to immediately extinguish most of the time. I'll go ahead and throw my Molotov to pair with it, and let's take a look at what the effect is here. Notice how that smoke doesn't extinguish, and they still can't push up without taking damage. However, sometimes that smoke is thrown like this, where it's a little bit lower, and it ends up landing right on this crane leg, which makes it spill out forward a little bit deeper. And if that is thrown, then we'll take a look at the effect on that Molotov. It's definitely going to get extinguished. Go ahead and take a look here. That is not going to be able to live there. So you've got to keep that in mind. Depending on how they're throwing it and what they're doing, you're going to have to kind of react and respond to it. But either way, the HE can still be thrown. Or if you're not going for a side hall peek, you can do a simple left click throw towards the top right of this position on the box for that to land straight down here and completely molly off any T so that they can't push through. Another thing to keep in mind is that I believe this smoke right here is going to be extremely meta. This right here where it's going to smoke off both heaven and hell down below it. That way, this whole area, you just don't have to worry about it. So as a result, when that smoke is down, this old lineup right here that you would typically molly off the default plant spot, well, it's kind of obstructed. So there's going to have to be some new mollies found that are going to either stop this plant, but the same with this region right here. I think this plant spot is going to be way more common now that teams are probably going to be smoking off here and taking a lot more control. So to stop that, if the smoke weren't to be there, you could just do a simple left click at the top of this little number. That's going to end up landing right here, and it's going to spread down and molly this area off. But since most of the time I feel like that's going to be smoked during an execute, we're going to have to find some new ways to do it. So when you're behind the smoke and they're planning, you can go back into this corner right here, and you can just aim at the bottom right of this little bracket, go all the way back to the left in the normal spot, and left click throw your molly, left click throw your HE, and voila, you've thrown the old set that is going to destroy anyone planning in this position. But what about this spot? Well, it's as easy as going into that exact same corner, finding the top left of this rectangle, going into the middle of the pole. It's not very precise, don't worry about it. Just go all the way over here to the left and do a simple left click throw, and just like that, you've mollied out this corner completely. So now let's go ahead and move over to T-side Molotovs, starting with the A site, because there's just so many new angles you're gonna have to worry about, such as these two pillars right here. Notice how you're gonna have to go pretty far up ramp before you're able to see that they're here. So of course you could just go here into this position, and you can go in between this little window and this support beam towards the top, and just do a simple left click throw. And typically after a couple of seconds, that molly will spread to both this position and this one. But if you'll notice, sometimes there's little gaps here. I think this would still be burning this player, and they're definitely not gonna have the nerve to stand here, but it's not a perfect Molotov. So what I recommend doing instead with this pillar right here, they can't fully hide behind it. You can jump spot right here and see them, Or if they're more on the left here, like let's say they're more centered on the beam, something like maybe they're here, you're going to be able to go all the way to the right and still see a little piece of them like this. So you're able to clear it that way. So what I recommend doing instead is just clearing that with a jump spot and then just going into this corner. If you don't see anyone there, you're just going to go up to the top of this thing right here and to the right in between here and the wire. You just do a simple left click throw, and that should go all the way up here, and that's going to land in this position. And why I like this one so much is look how deep this Molotov spreads back to where you can't have a player set up here in an angle like this. It's going to spread all the way back and cover a lot more ground that way. And from that exact same position, you can instead do a W jump throw right here at the bottom of this corner. And that should go all the way up here, and it's going to land on top of Heaven and will spread down, completely mollying off the entrance here under Heaven, as well as this position right here to where a lot of times they're going to have to push out into the open. This is a very good Molotov that, again, it will completely engulf all of Heaven here to where there's nowhere that they can stand and peek from. And of course, you can't go wrong with a good old headshot Molotov. Typically, I'll just come up here and just aim above this Lego-looking metal piece here, and that'll land right here and typically completely molly this position off. That's usually how I like to throw it. There are other ways to do that. I've seen some people go up into this position right here and do a W jump throw up from the top left of this sign along to the bricks, and that should go all the way through here, and it lands here, and it does actually spread into this position, and a lot of times it'll spread all the way out to where they can't slip through here without getting hit, which is pretty good. So before this update, a lot of people would molly this position out by doing this. They'd go right here into this position and do a left and right click throw here at this circle. Now, since there's this big opening, that molly has way more room to spread into here and oftentimes won't go all the way into this corner. And of course, it's just a very large Molotov. So instead, what I've been throwing is where I'll go into this corner and I'll just do a simple left click throw where this yellow bar intersects with this gray one, and that should pop straight down. It lands on the edge here, but it's going to only molly out this corner position and will allow you still plenty of room to push on through past this, whatever smokes you've thrown. It's not going to obstruct any sort of side haul hit. So another really important Molotov, especially for a mid lurker to learn, is where you can jump right up here into this position. You're going to crouch and just get your crosshair to where it is aligned with that wire right there. You can then just stand up and find the top left of this little rectangle above the door and just do a simple jump throw. And that Molotov should bank out on the back here and completely molly off this area right here. This is really, really useful in order to take map control as you're moving up towards A. And believe it or not, this is what the best spawn versus best spawn timing looks like for mid now. You're able to get here, get the molly down, and generally get a kill, but you have to do it pretty quickly. So when looking at the mid timing, this is the intersection point. So one more thing to keep in mind is if you're throwing it too high like this, a lot of times it's going to go closer to this corner, and you'll oftentimes have a little gap right here. As you can see, you could walk straight through this without getting burned or any sort of tick. A smart T may figure that out and slip into positions you wouldn't expect. So what I recommend doing is aiming at the bare minimum below these 3 dots right here or right at them. Probably the best spread is if you go right around here and just aim at the bottom of those right there. As you can see, that every single time, there's no way they're getting through this without ticking into it, and the fact that it's further up means that they're going to have to burn through it a little bit more as they're running around. So now moving on over to the B-bomb site, there's a glaring issue. With these mollies being a lot smaller, if you just kind of carelessly wheel the corner and bank a molly like this, a lot of times it's not going to fully spread to where it's going to cover the staircase here. Take a look, there's a huge gap they could just slip right up into. So what I've been doing instead is aiming right around here as I'm running up to where it's going to bank off of this, then off the side, and it's going to pop right here, completely engulfing this region where they can't push up here and jump up onto this generator without taking damage. So this is what the timing looks like on this best spawn versus best spawn. They are going to take in this molly, but barely, so it's something you're going to have to keep an eye out for. Make sure you're ready for that fight. And believe it or not, the CT actually wins the race here, so you can definitely get posted up there with an AWP. Here's a side-by-side comparison on the spawns where you can very clearly see that the CT wins the race. So if you're in a retake situation, or maybe you're wanting to stop the plant, you can get stuck into this position, and just like the old lineup, if you do a jump throw down from this little dark spot down to the bottom of the shadow, that's going to end up banking off a double, and it should spread all the way back here, but notice how there is still a little bit of a gap on the left-hand side. This should still stop the plant most of the time, because I feel like most people just go right into the middle of these boxes. If they're on the far left, it's not going to stop it though, which is unfortunate. So from up here in connector, just doing a standard left click right here towards this pole is still the best way to do it, because that's going to get your perfect spread right here for anyone in this position. So now moving on to the B bomb site, I would say the two most important positions to molly off are going to have to be this default position here, and of course the back of this pillar. So the easiest way to molly off back pillar is just by coming to the front right of this box and doing a simple left click throw at this top screw right here. That's going to go all the way to the back, and it should completely molly off the back side of this pillar, and after a couple seconds it'll even spread around to right here to where there's no way they can use this back beam as cover. And now for the default molly, there's a couple of ways that people like to do this. This one's a little bit more risky, but on the fly, I tend to throw this one. I'll go right here to the left side of this box, and I'm gonna do a simple left click throw to the left side of this little marking on the crossbeam. It's gonna look something like that. Should go right back here and completely molly off all of this region. But one thing to keep in mind, a lot of these mollies, they're not gonna consistently spread to right behind this beam, which is a decent angle for CTs and especially AWPers to sit on. And hey, you could really get caught off guard here. So what I recommend doing instead is coming under the staircase into this corner and just going up from this little bracket here up to the right to where you're in between the tip of this and this little yellow circle, and just do a simple left click throw. That should go all the way back here, and this one has a better chance of spreading all the way behind the pillar to where they can't take that angle. That is my favorite way to throw it, just because of how much more effective it is. Or if you think one of the CTs is hiding behind white or behind double, you can go down into this corner and do a simple jump throw with a Molotov towards the top right of this larger square right here. And that, most of the time, will pop straight down, and it's gonna spread to both behind double and behind white here to where they're absolutely stuck out in the open whenever they run away from this Molotov. So yeah, guys, that's what I consider to be the essential Molotovs for CS2 Vertigo. If you want to support me, go ahead and click that Skins Monkey link down in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.